Hello everyone, my name is Andy Tatterstall. I'm an information specialist based at the University of Sheffield, which doesn't tell you much about me, but I've got a very kind of free-ended role that I horizon scan. I get involved in MOOCs, in altmetrics, all kinds of things, and try and get some change happening within research. And this, I don't know if my slides should be on here. My slides? Oh, there you go. And this basically comes around the idea of, sorry, let's just get it on full. This comes around the idea of should we have a research technologist based on the learning technologist equivalent. For those who don't know, learning technologists work within central university, work within departments, and they work with teachers to get them to use technology, whether that's social media or the VLE or whatever, as part of their role. And they use a pedagogy to do that. But in research, we have lots of people who do different things. We have people who work in impact, we have people who work in communications and marketing, we have people who work in the library. I actually am a hybrid role. I do all of that. I get all of our returns for the ref, but I'm also involved in getting people to communicate their research, to do lots of different things. So it made me thinking that should we have a research equivalent? And I wrote this piece for the LSE about 9 months ago, based on this idea. And it seemed to chime with a few people that I've spoken to. People say, yeah, I'm in a similar kind of role. I work across departments. People come and see me from all over the place and have very, very similar problems despite their discipline. So I work with them and try and help them out best I can. The research cycle, and I apologise that I didn't Photoshop this into a cycle, but the research cycle is very much changing, and I do appreciate that you don't get breaks. You're continually on a go. My research colleagues are constantly juggling many, many different plates. But the actual cycle is changing, that there's a lot of different things happening now about getting things open, about communicating your research, doing things like writing blog posts, making your data something that is identifiable and that is separate and can be repurposed. And throughout that process, it should be that you can capture all of these aspects, you can publish them, you can share them, and as part of that, you own them. So the research cycle is changing, even though the vast majority of my colleagues that I work with are still working very much in that first part of the cycle. Because academia is changing forever, and there's lots of things here you'll recognise, whether it's the influence of Sci-Hub on how people are getting publications, to data citation, to altmetrics, to having an ORCID ID. We're in a massive change of flux right now, and it's very disorientating for researchers, especially when they've got information governance, equality and diversity, lots of things they have to do, health and safety training, fire training, all this stuff that is part of their job. So this is just extra things. And also the sheer amount of technologies out there to actually work with. This is some work by 2 Dutch librarians who looked at 101 innovations in scholarly communications. And they had this Google spreadsheet where they asked people to put things in that were tools that you could use within scholarly communications. And they called it 400 plus tools, innovations and scholarly communication. It ended up around 800, and there's lots and lots more out there. So it's a huge field for people to navigate. And researchers don't have the time to test and try and play with, so they need someone who's doing that and can tell them the pros and cons. And this is, if you're not seeing this, the increase in the productivity of scholarship, which is different models now in which to carry out the research cycle. Everyone has different needs. I work within the field of health and related research. It's very different to, say, arts and humanities or social sciences. Different considerations, different concerns, especially when communicating your research. So there's all these different tools that can see fit and do the job. This was just something I quickly knocked up a couple of years ago for a talk that I did at jobs.ec.uk event in Warwick. And it's based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And this idea that wherever you are in your research career, you have different needs and you have different tools to help you in that research career. So if you're a professor or a PhD student, you may use Twitter very differently. You may use Twitter as a PhD student to just let editors of journals know you exist, let funders know you exist. For a professor, they may not necessarily need that kind of leverage. So everyone uses things differently. And this is very, very, very rough. It was a very kind of rough thing to make a point. So as I say, learning technologists and teachers and lecturers, they think of a pedagogy when thinking of technology when using it. But what do researchers do, and who gives them that answer? And I think that's why we need to have a better support. They can quite often know of individual people who can help with one little thing, but researchers, my experience anyway, quite often need the answer quickly, and they just need to know who can help them. And sometimes it's that centralised hub, whether it's a librarian, information professional, a communicator, to have these answers. So do we actually have research technologists already existing? So it led me to draft a thing called the Research Technologist Manifesto. And I've drafted this primarily with Mark Carrigan. I did the first iteration, Mark's added to it. Anyone who knows Mark, he wrote the Social Media for Academics book, very popular, very, very good book. And at the moment, we're just forming this idea. I've given a few presentations. Me and Alison McNabb did a workshop in York, just to try and find out what are the needs of people for this kind of centralised sort of role, whether it exists within a faculty or a department. So this is something that we want to kind of get out there and discuss and share. I have no idea if that was 5 minutes. I think it was like 2, but at least we got time for a question.